Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the planning board meeting of Wednesday, August 19th, 2026 to order. The first item on the agenda is a public hearing for the Stetson Farm Conservation Subdivision Final Plan Review under Section 9073. If you look at the ordinances, it's actually labeled as 2, but that's a typo. If Peter or Jim, do you guys want to get up and say anything at this point? You don't need to. It's totally. I think you.
Unless you want us to say something about the project.
No. Yeah, whatever you want to do is totally fine. I'll give you a few minutes at the start of this public hearing. So.
Sure. Good evening. My name's Peter Beagle. I'm a landscape architect site planner with Land Design Solutions, and I'm here with Jim Cram, the owner and applicant for the Stetson Farm subdivision. It's a 10-lot conservation subdivision. The parcel is 124 acres with approximately 92 acres being put into open space and the rest of the land being developed with one large 20-acre lot and 9 smaller lots aligned along a 1,186-foot long subdivision road. The road will be private. The open space will be conveyed to the Royal River Conservation Trust. There is a 22,000-gallon cistern as part of the subdivision project that will be located along the subdivision road with a little pull-off area. A land management plan was submitted in the package, put together by the Royal River Conservation Trust of their kind of their vision, how they operate, and what would be happening on the parcel. The parcel would be, the open space would be open to the public, trails maintained. The road would be, construction on the road hopefully would start as soon as we are approved. We'd take advantage of this fall season and best potential conditions on the Poland Range Road for accessing the site. We have met with the road commissioner, town staff, plan for assessing the road just prior to our construction and monitoring during our construction. And they have a plan in place that's been reviewed with the road commissioner, the select board for taking care of any impacts that our construction would cause to the Poland Range Road as construction of our private road takes place. We've worked out a performance guarantee for the subdivision road, which would be an irrevocable letter of credit. We would post an escrow account for the impacts to the Poland Range Road, and we would post an escrow account would be set up for an inspection fee of our road that would be inspections, monitoring of construction materials, compaction by SW Cole, and that would be paid from our escrow account through the town so that the reports would go to the reporting would be directly to the town. So that has all been worked out with the select board. So we believe we're in a good shape with all the financial information. We've reviewed North Star's letter for tonight, memo for tonight. We are in agreement with everything that they have said. The plan that's up there on the screen at the bottom of the plan, which we can't quite see, has a red cloud around it, are the conditions of approval, which have been added to the plan. So Yeah, if we could scroll just to the bottom of that, maybe. Yeah, right there on the bottom, conditions of approval. And those are word for word taken from Natasha's memo. So we think we've covered all the points that we've discussed and all the points in the approval section 907. And I think that's a summary. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Natasha, if you don't mind just taking a minute or two to update, if you'd like, the project from your perspective.
Certainly. Natasha Kipper, North Star Planning, and contract planner with the town of Pownell. So just to kind of underscore where we are in the process and maybe repeat some of the things that Peter already said, but we're here at the final plan meeting. This is really a meeting that has immediately followed the preliminary plan approval, and it is the opportunity to basically the additional submissions that were required for the conservation subdivision to review those and sort of cross the Ts, dot the Is, as it were, and make sure that the conditions are lined up appropriately. So there'll be a little bit of a repeat here, but just to review in my memo, it goes through the findings of fact and the conclusions of law. I'll just notate for the record, which I have what has been updated there, but I don't think it is a requirement that the board need to verbatim go through those again like we did at the previous meeting. It's reflected on the record as part of this application packet. But I'll just underscore some of the things that I did update just for the sake of continuity. And so on page 2, we start with the findings of fact, and I updated under section 908C1 to notate that the land management plan was submitted by Royal River Conservation Trust. That document is to be reviewed by the town attorney for final approval. And scrolling down to item 7, the 3 waivers were granted with the preliminary plat approval at the previous meeting. Also wanted to notate on the record section 907B1, this is towards the bottom of page 3, and this is regards again to those kind of final materials that needs to be submitted with the final plan. And so to emphasize that the proper process happened and the channels are so that the performance guarantee and sort of all the monies aspect has to go before the select board. That did happen. I believe that was 2 Mondays ago. And that is reflected in the suggested conditions of approval, which I'll walk through at the end here. But I'm notating that the open space item 1A that's been provided, item 1B is to be provided as a condition of approval. This is the legal sufficiency, and so that is currently in process with the town attorney. And then the performance bond, that those details have been provided. The conclusions of law reflect the findings and the discussions of the board from the last meeting. And so those reflect those decisions there. And then to underscore within the motion, as you'll see, there's just one suggested motion. It is just the final plan approval because we already have had completeness. We've already had preliminary plat review. We've had the waivers granting. And so the conditions under the suggested motion is what I'd like to highlight. And so again, with approval with the select board, there's been that review of the performance guarantee. This is relative to having an irrevocable letter of credit for the construction of the private road. This will be reviewed by the town attorney. That is in process. And then the items 1B and C, that's related to the escrow accounts for monies for the road guarantee and then also for the inspection fee. And then finally, there is D, which is related to the town attorney review. And so that this approval this evening, if this moves forward, is contingent upon the final review and acceptance of the HOA documents and the land management plan provided by RRCT by the town attorney. And so I do think it would be useful for the board to kind of have a discussion about some of those new materials that have been provided since the last meeting. But I'm also here if there's any additional questions, but that would be my kind of short recap, and thank you for the time.
Thank you. So at this point, I would like to open up the public hearing to any comments or questions from the public.
Kate Day, Poland Range Road, 143 Poland Range Road. I'm in a butter. My comment or question is related to the homeowners association agreement, whether there is language in it or maybe language in it that allows ADUs. And I'm interested in whether lawyer review will determine whether that happens or not, or whether the planning board will determine whether that happens or not. And my comment on it as an abutter would be that I don't think it's a great idea to have even more traffic on the road and more residents. So I would say I think there should not be language that allows an ADU in addition to the 10 units.
That's a good question. Thank you for that. There is language in the HOA that talks about a single principal building, but it does not disallow an ADU per se. Peter, if you want to talk more about that.
Sure. We did, as you mentioned, we did put in the covenants only one principal build structure per lot, but we were not in favor of the ADU prohibition, thinking, you know, housing is needed if you have elderly parents or kids or whatever, that an ADU is just a really good thing to have. It doesn't generally, well, your septic system has to be sized to accept another bedroom. It seems there are constraints in place that if it doesn't fit on, you know, on the lot, that there are constraints in place that it just, you know, wouldn't be able to happen. But should it be able to happen, we actually think it's a good idea. And I know it would put potentially another car on the, you know, for every ADU, there's probably another car, or I don't know if it's an elderly parent, maybe not. But anyway, it seems like that's a needed thing in the state of Maine and in southern Maine in particular. So we were in favor of allowing the ADUs, although we do prohibit the additional primary structure.
And just for the record, the planning board can't demand that the applicant disallow ADUs. We can make suggestions. And I appreciate that Peter and Jim have disallowed other buildings aside from the principal building, which I think will serve a purpose.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Am I accurate on that? When they say no principal, no other, we should pull up the language specifically. See if I can't pull that up real quick. I think this is this was one of my big concerns, so I appreciate the question, and I think it's okay if we take a minute to talk about this.
Yeah, page 11 of the covenants, lot owners may not construct more than one principal dwelling unit per lot. So section 6.7, it's its own little sentence on there.
So what would, for clarification, what exactly is a tiny house? Would a tiny house be prohibited under that sentence, do we feel?
I think it would have to meet the town's definition of an accessory dwelling unit.
I will just need a moment to pull that up on my screen. I don't have it right before me. But I would just underscore that as drafted this evening, these documents, this approval, again, is contingent upon the town attorney reviewing this. And so they will be reviewing it in accordance with the land use ordinance in the town as well as state statute. And so to that end, I wouldn't have too much comment or concerns because I know that the town attorney is going to follow the necessary statute.
I understand that. What my question is, and Tim, you can jump in as well, or anybody on the board for that matter. My question is, what exactly does that sentence mean? And so, again, my question is, let me pull that up again. Peter, what page was that on?
Page 11 of the 11 of the covenants and conditions.
There's 100 pages here. $49. Thank you. I got it. So, more than one, what exactly is meant by that, more than one principal dwelling per lot? So you can have a principal dwelling, you can also have a secondary dwelling, so it's not prohibiting a secondary dwelling.
Does
Am I reading that right?
what it's meant to be, you couldn't have two houses. Some of the new state legislation is trying to allow two principal structures on a lot. And so I think we were trying to use that language, but I guess I'm wondering if in your ordinance, your definition for principal structure and the definition for an accessory dwelling unit
I'm
would come
wondering
into
that.
play.
Yeah, I'm wondering that myself.
Anyway, tiny house can be a principal dwelling or an accessory dwelling.
Right, and so I think, I wonder, do we have a definition for principal dwelling?
We have single. I think in our ordinance, it would be referred to as single family dwelling.
So we could amend that to say only one single family dwelling per, or you could ask your attorney what,
Yeah, I mean,
what would be the,
I think we're all on the same page, and my only concern is that it's actually saying what we think it says, and that there's I think we're and I can't speak for everybody, but I'm in agreement. In-law type apartment is something completely different than having another house, a tiny house, multiple tiny houses on these properties. And so if we're all, and if anybody on the board has any other thoughts on that, making sure there's no ambiguity in the language, I think would be best. We already deal with enough ambiguity to begin with, so.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any comments on that? I don't want to take all the time on this. And the tiny house was just an example. I don't think that's in the ordinances. I think that's on the website.
I feel like we kind of had this discussion in the last meeting already of that, you know, as we said, the planning board cannot instruct the applicant to write the HOA laws in different ways. And so it's somewhat of a moot point if the planning board wants to discuss ADU policies in general. I think that's appropriate in another meeting, but I wouldn't necessarily go down the rabbit holes of ADU at this point.
No. So I disagree with that. What we were suggesting and what the applicant agreed to, we are not telling the applicant not to do something or that they should do something. A suggestion and a concern of the planning board was exactly as the public stated, that we don't, it would be, it could potentially be problematic to have a bunch of ADUs. And I think the applicant agreed to that as well. And so I'm not asking to litigate about whether ADUs should be permitted in general. We cannot dictate that to the applicant. What the applicant has done is put in a provision that is disallowing, or we feel is disallowing, anything other than principal structures. And I think the real discussion is not so much about ADUs, but what exactly does the language that they're using mean? And does it mean what we are thinking it means? So if somebody comes before Tim in the future and they say they want to put up another dwelling that is not their principal dwelling, is Tim forced to give them, not forced, but compelled to give them a building permit under ADU laws? As I read this, it suggests to me that perhaps despite what the applicant was trying to do, is that an ADU could be built alongside a principal dwelling. So that's all I'm trying to clarify. I'm not trying to relitigate or defend or argue ADUs. It's just, does this language allow for another dwelling to be built on the lot? That's it.
I'm sorry, Todd. I'm not sure that's what I heard the applicant say, was that you're not trying to prohibit ADUs. Like that, I just wanted to make sure. Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure, because
We're saying one principal dwelling unit
right.
on the lot, and then, you know, you could build an ADU that fits your definition of an ADU could be built on the lot, whether it's a ADU cottage, whether it's a room above the garage, whether it's, you know, a part of the house, however it may fit on that lot.
Yes.
But that you would have one principal dwelling unit.
And I don't know if we need to clarify, because I think the problem in our ordinance is that we're not specific about principal dwelling unit. We do reference in our definition of an ADU, we actually reference a principal single-family dwelling at the end. So the only problem is we're not saying single family in this particular, he is saying principal dwelling. It's just not principal single. Like, do we need that? Are you looking for that level of clarity?
Well, I don't know. I mean, if, I guess I don't understand what this sentence is actually limiting.
So I think, yeah, your point, it probably needs to be conformed to our definition. It should be single family dwelling. But a principal dwelling might be what the federal main law uses, especially if it's at the end of our ADU definition, which probably got copied and pasted from that. But I think for this, it would be single family dwelling. That way, to your question, if someone comes to Tim, he can go to the definitions and say, well, it's a single family dwelling, not a multifamily.
What I think I'm gonna do is put a pin in this. And we will have time in our meeting to go over this in more detail. I do want to make sure that I give the public, the time that they need to make any additional comments.
Sure.
Are there any other comments? If there's no further comments, I will close the public hearing portion. And I will call the regular meeting of the planning board to order. We'll go around and introduce ourselves. My name is Todd Mellon. I am the chair of the planning board.
I'm Tim Giddon. I'm the code enforcement officer for Pownell.
Marcia Bowen, secretary.
Mercedes Poor, assistant chair.
Roger Old alternate.
Ryan Stornelli, board member.
Orion Brain, board member.
Paul Kerrigan, alternate.
Natasha Kipfer, town planner.
Okay, we'll move on to the secretary's report. First item of business is approval of the minutes, from the July 22, 2026 regular meeting. Does anybody have any changes or additions?
I move to approve.
I second. All in favor?
Wait, I just want to mention that Orion had comments and I did incorporate them. They may not be the same as on the website, but they're in there.
Before I move to vote on it, is there any discussion? All in favor? Is there, from there, we'll move on to old business. I think what I would like to do is switch around the old business and just button up the Stetson Farm final plan first, and then we'll move on to the Victory subdivision. So the first thing that we have is if we look at the final plan requirements, as Natasha pointed out, we are holding a review within 6 months as per 907A1. And this is all under 907A. We do have the DEP review that's required under 907A2A. Does anybody have any comments or questions about the DEP review that was included?
I just will add, we have both permits, stormwater and construction management permit, and just for my own sake, because I'm familiar with the old site location, I just did double check with DEP to be sure there was nothing else needed, and they confirmed just as you had told me. So I feel that's all complete.
Yeah. Good.
Under And I'm just quickly going over the new submissions that we've had since the preliminary plan. We also have the civil engineering review of the well plan. Anybody have any comments or questions about that? That's under 907A3C. And then under 907A4B. We have the DEP approval of septic. Under 907B submissions. That's page 79. Peter did a nice job. That's page 79 of the final application, final submission. Peter did a good job walking through all this. I do appreciate, Peter, how thorough that you've been through this process. So we have the copies of the plans. As Natasha talked about, the plans contain the project information. The only question I think I had was, and Natasha, we talked about this yesterday, about the lots being labeled, not necessarily as subdivision lots, but as their town lots.
Let me just pull up the plan. I think that Tim and I were speaking about this too. Let's see. Tim, do you want to weigh in?
Do you have that ordinance section where that is required in front of you?
Oh, me?
Yes.
What the ordinance says is, and so it may, under 907B1G, lots and blocks within subdivision number in accordance with local practice. So I'm assuming, and this is my maybe ignorance, is that those should be labeled as per a tax map. But I could be mistaken.
I think you're correct. I mean, I don't want to say that I'll say it. If you go by history, that's what has been required of the plans in the past. So the way that's written, I think you have to take that.
If I may weigh in, I think that if we're looking at G on page 130 there, that can be an update to the plan. I don't think it will prohibit us moving forward.
For sure.
And it's just, in my mind, it's a de minimis change, updating all the lots to show the lot number kind of inclusive of the subdivision, and then the overall lot number, have the map and lot -1, -2 to show the total lots. I consider that a de minimis change that can be updated on the plan, and then the plans can be signed once those are added.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, totally. I just wanted to make sure that that gets done because we've already had some issues where lot numbers are used and not.
So how would we, so do we talk to the tax assessor? I mean, tax assessor is the one that assigns whatever lot numbers those would be. Is that correct? I mean, I guess I've never had to do that.
I can talk with the tax assessor and get those for you.
The other new submission was the letter from Royal River. Did anybody have any questions or concerns about that? Yeah.
It's more of a point of understanding that I was wondering when the CEO takes over the project, at what point do you then start your process of, say, making sure that everything is constructed according to plan and cistern inspection and all that? So when does that when do we sign off?
So the note that was added on the plan by Natasha's request states that, I believe it states, I hope it states that after the attorney has finished his review, first, it gets approved by the planning board. Then we have to wait for the attorney's review of the things that we're requiring, or the ordinance requires reviewed. Once that is complete, then the project starts. And then that's when I start taking over on overseeing and making sure everything is done by the ordinance.
Were there any concerns or questions about the management plan, Royal River's management plan? So we have all the bond language in there as well. I didn't see any issues. Did anybody else have any issues with any of that?
So what I submitted, bond language, all kind of went out the window at our meeting with the select board.
Okay.
The select board was looking for an irrevocable letter of credit, which we were on board with for the $528,000 new proposed subdivision road. The $2,005 impact monies for Poland Range Road is going to be put in an escrow account, and that was the request of the town attorney, and we're fine with that. And then the inspection fee will be put in an escrow account also. So where we started with what I submitted here and where we ended up is different, but where we ended up are the notes that are on the plan and in Natasha's memo.
All right, thank you for clarifying. The applicant did reach out to the RSU as well. I appreciate that, Peter, and that was noted in the application that there did not appear to be an issue with 10-lot subdivision. So then the only other bit would be to just get back quickly to the interpretation of the HOA and what our thoughts are on that. Again, we can't force the applicant to do anything. I just want to make sure that we're all clear about what that language means, and to make it easy for our staff that everybody's on the same page.
Yeah, I mean, I think from what I see that, I believe under Maine law that an accessory dwelling unit does not count as a principal structure under Maine law. And I understand under Maine law, municipalities must allow at least one accessory dwelling unit on any residential lot where a single family home is a principal structure, whether or not it's a subdivision or not. So I don't even know if they could limit ADUs. If they wanted to limit ADUs, even if they could do it under state law. And that there are limiting factors on ADUs in relation to how much land and buffering and lot size and waste management, leach field type septic constraints limits how much ADUs, but for state, it seems like the state law is saying they don't want towns to make it onerous to put ADUs in any single family home lot.
Weigh in if I could. There is, state statute also says that a homeowner's agreement can limit this, but it's, again, from what Todd said, it's not up to us. It's up to the applicant to, we can encourage it, but we can't ask for it. Okay. So I think that what they did was limit the number of primary dwellings or single-family dwellings on their own. I do believe that ADUs, as you said, they're going to have to pass a bunch of tests. They're going to have to prove that they have adequate water, septic, and so on and so forth before they can be approved. If a homeowners agreement restricts dwelling units or anything, like that, I as CEO cannot enforce that. I have to go by what the state statute is and what our ordinance say. I would have to refer them to the board, the board, homeowners agreement board. There we go.
And if you're done, Tim, if I may weigh in, I think to one of your original questions, Todd, and maybe that the board had as a whole, my guidance would be that the language as proposed is satisfactory. I would not suggest adjusting the language to match our ordinance now. Our ordinance now could evolve in time, and then we would have a document that kind of doesn't represent kind of the general terminology that we want it to be. And if we look at page 19 in the definitions, dwelling unit, single family dwelling, two family dwelling, this is called principal dwelling per lot. I think, to me, it seems consistent. I don't think the phrase single family needs to be added in there. That would be my guidance.
Okay.
On that end. But I appreciate wanting to look at all the details and making sure that it kind of, the intent lines up with and is reflective of the ordinance.
I would also say that language is actually reflected in our ordinance on the ADUs, where we only talk about the principal dwelling. That's all we mentioned. So I think it's also consistent with other parts of our ordinance.
Does anybody else have any other comments, questions, concerns about the application before us that we haven't discussed already? So if there are no other concerns, I feel that the applicant, in my opinion, has met the requirements of the ordinance. I feel that they've done a very, nobody likes change. I can understand the thoughts of those on Poland Range Road. But change is going to happen. It's happened where I live. There's nothing we can do about it. I think all we can do is make that change as agreeable as possible. And I do feel that the applicant has gone above and beyond in that regard. So I really appreciate the work that you guys have done. I think this is, if we take a look back at our old ordinances, for those that do live on Poland Range Road, if you consider what could have been done on that road with this piece of property, it would have been a much different world, and there would have been nothing that the planning board could have done to prohibit that. So I think this is the best for the town. And I think the applicant will do well. I think the fact that we have 100 acres given to Royal River Trust is impressive. So with all that said, I suggest that we move that based on the application and related documents and information provided by the applicant and written and oral comments of the applicant, reviewing officials and members of the public as reflected in the public record, the planning board finds that the final plan application of the Stetson Farm Conservation Subdivision located at Tax Map 1, Lot 6, satisfies the applicable standards of the Town of Pownell Land Use Ordinance and therefore approves the application with the following conditions. Prior to issuance of a private road construction permit, the applicant shall provide the following: the performance guarantee in the amount of $529,000 and in the form of an irrevocable letter of credit for the construction of the private road, Goddard Lane, and other associated improvements which the developer will draft and the town attorney will review. B, monies to establish an escrow account with the town for the road guarantee, which is for Poland Range Road repair as needed, to total $205,000. C, monies to establish an escrow account with the town for the inspection fee, which is equal to 2% of the cost of the required improvements, $10,580 for the SW Cole study and any subsequent inspections required. D, further approval is contingent upon the final review and acceptance of the HOA documents and the land management plan provided by the Royal River Trust Conservation Trust by the town attorney. Is there a second? Is there any discussion by the board?
Good question.
You can.
Is there a reason why we don't have to declare this application complete first?
The application was already declared complete at the preliminary plan stage, and it does not, so that is for the life cycle of the application.
Okay, so even though it's a final plat.
There doesn't need to be a motion for completeness. Thank you.
Is there anything else? All in favor? Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for all your hard work.
So we'll get from Tim the tax map, or whatever, for each one of those lots. We'll put that on the plat. We'll bring you 4 revised copies of plat plans. And when would those be signed, or what? I guess I'm thinking about how we move forward as expeditiously as possible.
We do need to wait for the legal review to be complete.
Yes,
So that's
yes. Money has to be put in place, legal review.
probably going to be the one that lags the furthest behind.
Yeah.
It's up to the board. Go ahead. We can have them available, and we can let everybody know that they're available to come sign. There's also the letter of decision that Todd has to sign, with this.
Okay.
So I guess that would be my answer. We can have it available once it's complete for signatures. But as Masir said, we can't move forward until all those other conditions were met.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you very much.
Okay. So, Thank you guys for being patient with us and that little swap. We'll move on to the Victory subdivision. Brian, I'm just gonna have you take this part for me.
So how do I do this? Just go through the memo? Which?
I guess we could start with just having the applicant come forward and talk about your application.
Okay, so, it was already through, I did the wetlands thing, we got the plan for the driveway, and then I just basically am asking for the
All
waiver.
right, just introduce yourself for us.
Drew Victory, 78 Layton Road. Yep, so the waiver that I asked for was to get the, not have to come up with the money for the driveway, since the driveway has to be in place to build in the lot, that was my contention, but that's the question I had for you guys.
Yeah, and
Yeah, the widths.
just describe briefly project.
It's a splitting of a lot off my main lot. It's a driveway from the road straight back. If you're looking at it, 300
Can you
feet back.
pull that up for us, Orion?
I think we have copies over here. Does anybody want one?
Yeah.
They've brought updated plans that we don't have electronically yet.
Okay.
No. Yep. So we asked for the first waiver was to make the road not the full, what, 26, 24?
20 feet.
Yeah, so to make it 20, which the road commissioner said was cool. That was a while back. And then we added another thing to not try to have to, whoever builds, if it's one of my kids or whatever, to front the money for the driveway, since the driveway literally has to be in to get to the building lot. You have to come along that thing to build to the left of it because of the wetlands that are in place. So I felt like kind of, you can't get to build it unless you put the road in. So, but that's why I asked for that waiver. Based on the wording in Natasha's thing was that, or, so I figured, or you'd have the discretion to decide that by looking at it, you wouldn't need to have that be a condition.
Okay.
Okay.
If it'd be okay with the board, I'd be glad to give a quick synopsis just as the planner reviewing and to kind of talk through the actions available to the board this evening.
Yeah.
Thank you. So in my memo, I kind of go through the overview of this application. As most folks remembered this. This application predates my time working with the town of Pownell, but there was already 2 meetings back in September and October in the autumn of last year. And based on the site walk that also happened, the applicant is coming forward now with some revised plans and with some more details because wetlands were observed and wet spots were observed during the site walk. And so I wanted to also, so I want to walk through kind of the waiver requests, the suggested motions, and also clarify a couple items in my memo, just based on communicating with Drew Victory, the property owner. So one thing would be on page 3, under the findings of fact, my understanding was that this split is indefinitely for the owner's children. I just wanted to clarify that, from my understanding in the conversation with Drew, that is potentially one of the uses of this lot. And it is presented in the materials of the application that the plan at this time is not right now to build the road. And that was just commented on the record. And then I wanted to get into a few other details. So well, first, let me say there's 3 suggested motions before you this evening because this is a amended minor subdivision application. There need not be a public hearing. That is not required by the ordinance, but we would want to make a motion have you make a motion as to completeness of the application. Also make a motion as to the granting or denial of the waivers, and then if the board sees fit tonight, make an action for approval with conditions or denial of the amended minor subdivision. And so in terms of completeness, I just want to also clarify, this was detailed in my memo, but with the original submission, the applicant and applicant's agent had submitted the prior deed, but in the application, they'd referenced the current deed. Tim and myself did receive that copy of that current deed today. So we have that in our possession. And so that was the only thing that I noted was pending in terms of North Star's noting this as a complete application. So I would find the application complete in terms of that first motion. And then also to clarify in the record, the waivers. So the way I had suggested the waivers is to kind of have them nested because the waiver requests are for 3 separate geometric standard deviations from the public and private roads ordinance in the appendix. And so those could be nested under one waiver motion, or they could be itemized. It would be at the discretion of the board. But in my memo, I detail 2 of the requests. There is a 3rd request that needs to be added, which I notated from observing the plan. And I did talk about this with Mr. Victory the other day and Tim. And so so we have the first of 3 is Appendix A, Item 2. That's the minimum width of pavement. 20 is required, 16 is requested. Then Appendix A, Item 7, that's the roadway width of shoulders. 4 is required and 2 is requested. And then the one that I'm amending my memo on the record is Appendix D, which is the turnaround requirement. And I did see an email from the fire chief today that speaks to that kind of justification that I do think it would be worthwhile for the board to kind of go through the waiver request and discuss them on the record. To that point, my suggested motion there of 2, that would need to be amended to include Appendix D. And then I would also suggest that with the motion, if the board sees fit to make a motion of approval with conditions, then there is the suggestion to amend that language where it says in the planner memo dated August 19th, 2026, and on the record at the planning board meeting on August 19th, 2026, with the following conditions of approval. Just procedurally, we made a similar adjustment at the meeting last month. And then my last item that I wanted to go through is, actually, I'm sorry, I have 2 more things. So one of them is the suggested motion. So my suggested motion would be for approval with conditions. And so thank you to Mr. Carey, who provided the updated plan, notating the waiver language, and also discussing that the turnaround for emergency vehicles would meet the standards of the Pownell Fire Department. That's relative to that 3rd waiver request. And then for 3.2, which is, so the motion for approval with the condition, I had provided to the board multiple options, whether at your discretion, if you would want to move through and have a performance guarantee or prior to the issuance of a building permit, the private road, Victory Drive, would be constructed to the town of Pownell specifications in alignment with the granted waiver and is limited to only serving map 9, lot 50-03, which is lot 2B. Again, these are staff suggested that either of these would work. It is up to the discretion of the board. And then my last question, if I may, for Mr. Carries, since you're here, I just wanted to clarify, just for my own mathematics and record keeping, there's a note on the top of the plan. Sorry if I'm reaching across you, Todd. I just wanted to clarify where it says the total area of subdivision is 9.54 acres plus or minus. Just if you could just like spell out for me how you got to that conclusion. I think it would just be good to know. Yep, yeah. Thank you.
Right there, Gary Land Surveys. We have the lot 2B, lot 2A of the splits, 5.58, 3.66. And that's what comes out to the 9.54.
The total subdivision would be this, wouldn't it be all?
This is already out of the subdivision. Two are already out. So they're not part of the revision to the subdivision.
But they're part of the original subdivision, yes?
The original, yeah.
So this is an amended subdivision, so it's still part of the,
When we did this one and this one, these were the ones who were shown as the acreage that was subdivision. This wasn't even law at that time, so
but that was within the subdivision, right?
I believe that the original plan, it just shows the acreage for these two. It would be, going to be conveyed, not the whole lot.
I'm just,
That could be an easy enough change.
yeah, I'm just questioning it because I'm just looking at the definition of subdivision. This whole thing is literally the subdivision, correct?
It is also.
Yeah, so I think this should reflect the entire subdivision. So there's no confusion. It's not just this lot and this lot. It's actually everything on this platform.
So if that note was changed to total area revision of the subdivision, then that would suffice to these two lots, correct?
Say that again.
If this note said total area of revision of subdivision is 9.5 acres, because those are the ones that are impacted by the acreage.
I think you're revising the subdivision, but the subdivision is still the subdivision. So you're revising it not by adding acreage, you're changing lot lines.
That's fine. I mean, so.
Yeah, because it includes 4 lots. And that's important that is maintained.
Easy change.
Yeah, easy change.
Easy enough change. So just.
Yeah. But for the records in the future, yeah, it's important.
Keep the note on it with the separate, but it'll be included.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Carey. I think that satisfies just my calculation concern and then it just reflects the overall amended minor subdivision. Thank you.
Thank you for pointing that out, Basha.
So I missed the turnaround request. You're saying we do not need a turnaround? Because this does not reflect a turnaround.
So we do need that. This is for the board to discuss. My suggestion would be that the language be added because as proposed, the turnaround would be on the subject parcel, not on the right-of-way portion. And the road standard requires that turnaround on the road portion. So that's why, one, I omitted that in my draw up of my memo, so just noting that on the record. But two, my guidance would be that to be moving forward and approve the waivers, that waiver should be included.
And that was in a note from Chief Peters.
So
I
that,
don't think I saw that.
yeah, that was kind of separate. Maybe I'll let Tim speak to that because he has that email. But just for process, and making sure all the waivers are noted in the waiver approval, that third, waiver ought to be noted on the record because there is deviation from that geometric standard.
So to speak to this, I did have a discussion with Chief Peters about a turnaround on this site. And he would rather see a turnaround closer to the dwelling. Seeing that this is not a 600-foot road, it's a 300-foot road. He would like to get closer to the dwelling with the turnaround. The other reason that I would rather see it further on is that if it is put in at the end of the road, the 300-foot road, it would affect more wetlands than what it is already affecting.
So can we make that a condition that the driveway on the lot will have a turnaround within X feet of the house?
I think it would be, if I may weigh in, I think it would be sufficient to have the waiver, say, sorry, I'm just pulling up my notes. So to also, after item 7, 2 feet is requested, comma, and appendix D turnaround requirements are not required. You couldn't also include that language, but I am satisfied with the note being on the plan, but you could in part include that's the justification, if that's your justification for approving that waiver.
Okay.
And I also just wanted to make mention, because it was brought up, that the performance guarantee, I don't believe that would be an option of the board, but my guidance would be that the ordinance reflects language of may require performance guarantee, not shall require performance guarantee. And so with that language, there's no need for, it's kind of moot to have a waiver because it's not a requirement that the applicant would be requesting relief from. It would be a decision by the board to add that as a requirement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question? Now with the Harrison project, it required some performance guarantee. And what's different about this project? Just for consistency's sake, we wouldn't go through the same process.
I think the biggest difference is that Mr. Victory doesn't plan on constructing this road right away. It's for future use, possibly of his children, possibly of something else, but he does not plan on constructing it right away. And if we require a performance bond of him now, then we would be sitting on that money until the road is constructed.
Futures, I guess, good question.
So I would say that that's a discussion that we need to have if, Brian, if you want to have that discussion now, or if you wanted to talk about some other elements of the application first.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't realize you wanted me to fully run the meeting, so I didn't give it much thought
Yeah,
to like the
yeah.
process and the flow, but I'm happy to kind of stumble through it here. So, and I think I'm gonna need some help, Natasha, with these extra ones
I
you're
can give you a
talking
hand
through.
too as well.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think we should circle back to that. So I mean, first, we're talking about completeness and the application in general. So I think, there are some open questions there. We've debated this, whether it's this or others, just in terms of these amended subdivisions. You can certainly put roads in when you're starting a subdivision to serve multiple lots. I think, it's just an open question that I've always had about when you're adding a road to serve a single lot, given the definition of driveway, that, you know, if any way is serving 2 lots or less, it shall not afford street frontage. And so in this one, you know, in particular calls that out being a single lot. So I think that's kind of a question for the board. And I don't know if Tim or Natasha, if you had a chance to run that by the town attorney for more clarity.
We did get a note from the town attorney that said basically it's odd to do it that way, which I think we're all in agreement of, but that it is allowable
Odd to do it which way?
to put a road in to serve one lot.
So he's,
I can read the exact language. So the question was, the question was regarding the definition of driveway and whether this limits the subdivider from using an access way that serves only one lot to provide frontage for the new lot. And that's to rephrase, that's just saying if it's a driveway, but you're calling or building it to road standards, is it still a driveway or is it really a road?
but the question didn't specifically reference our definition of driveway.
I did put the definition of driveway, which is a vehicular access way serving 2 lots or less. Driveways, blah, blah, blah. Driveways shall not afford road or street frontage. So that's the definition. And it would seem that this is just a fancy driveway. The response from Ben McCall is, yes, driveways cannot provide road frontage, but this does not preclude the property owner from constructing something that meets town road standards, which can then provide legal frontage. It would be odd for a property owner to build a new road that is up to the standard to serve a single house. The economics of that likely do not make sense, but the ordinance doesn't prohibit that. So the real question is to what standard the access way is built. If it's only built to the standard in section 601, which is the driveway ordinance, then the lot must still have legal frontage from another public or private road. But if the road is built to the standard of 610, if I have that section correct in my head, for example, of a minor dead-end street, then the street itself can provide frontage. So even if a driveway is built to a road standard, even if it's essentially a driveway, if it's built to road standard, and we allow it, then it can provide frontage.
And so the next question that I asked of Ben was about if that frontage on a road still counted as frontage if the road standards are relaxed. And his response was yes.
Right.
So I guess, all right, so that disregards kind of the 2 lots or less in the definition.
Right, at this time. Right.
That's the way he's interpreting it.
Right, that's what he's interpreting.
Okay.
And as I wrap my head, so for the board to clarify, the question is a thing that looks like a driveway, even if it's built to a road standard, does it still a driveway, or is it a road that can afford frontage where a driveway cannot?
And I think that's an awesome question, but the problem is we have years of precedence, if not a month of precedence. So I just want to be really careful.
Right, and so I agree 100%. And even if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, if it's a road, it's okay. And the way that I wrap my head around, and I think it's worth, sorry to take up your time, but this is important because we've already seen one of these situations we're probably going to see another. And while we have this in front of us, I think it's worth just taking a minute to chat about this. The way I'm viewing this is in a subdivision, you can add a lot, which is allowable, correct? You can amend the subdivision and create a lot. In a subdivision, you can also add a road. Correct. In a subdivision, you can gain frontage for that new lot by building a road. Correct. So ultimately, the conclusion that I can come up with is, lastly, you can build a road that serves one lot and it can gain frontage from that road, which I think is basically your conclusion, Tim.
Yes.
But I think thinking about the fact that this is a subdivision, otherwise this wouldn't, if this were a single lot, despite what Ben said, this would not be allowable. It's the fact that this is part of a subdivision that makes this allowable.
I tend to disagree with you there. I think that in the single lot ordinance, it also mentions that roads can be built.
But only for certain, we just went through this with Harrison. I think this really needs to be clarified. The discussion was that it says you can build them, but under 610, you can only build them as part of a subdivision, minor or conservation easement, and then, or conservation subdivision. And then it also talks about a single lot plan division, which we talked about, Tim, that you felt was part of that 1979, 2008
Right. So
thing.
I don't want to go into the history of the single lot, but we do, Pownell is unique that we're allowed to have a single lot ordinance where people, homeowners or property owners need to come to us to break off a lot. Where in most towns in Maine, that is against subdivision rule statute. Pownell was allowed a resolve so we could continue doing that. And the reason, and back then, was that we'd been doing it for so long, we should be able to continue. So in the drafting of the single lot, and it's not ordinance, and it's a single lot ordinance, not a single lot subdivision, a road can be built to gain frontage for that single lot.
I think to Todd's point, though, even if it is a subdivision and if it's an amended subdivision, the subdivision was approved before 2008, you're allowed to use that 605 single lot ordinance in the review of a amended subdivision. So in that instance, you kind of would need that language for a road, but then when you circle back to putting the road in, what you just referenced, Todd, says it's only for a minor subdivision. So I would almost interpret that as being the only instance in which the 605 single lot with a road can be used is when it's in the context of a pre-2008 amended subdivision.
I'd have to digest that a little further, I'm sorry.
Do you think that's something that,
Everything's convoluted, right? You have to chase these things through and through. Just because it says at one place, it can be totally contradicted at other places.
if Tim or Natasha, I think we should clarify this, so maybe at a future meeting, if you could spell out that history for us and give us a little presentation on what that history is and how that applies to the subdivision ordinance and how it doesn't apply. I think that would be really helpful to the board because it is confusing. It is not clear.
Can I just ask for the record too, because we've talked about this a couple of times. These cannot be backlots because they're within a subdivision? And this one doesn't get five acres?
So in the backlot ordinance, there's criteria that needs to be met to have a
Okay.
backlot. One of them is that you need 5 acres.
Which don't have.
And
Yep.
this, I mean, maybe he could have made 5 acres out of this, but there's also two other things that make this, that it not eligible for a backlot is that in the backlot, you're supposed to have from 350 feet to 599 feet. This has more road frontage than that. So he would not qualify for that point either for a backlot. And the other one is any subdivision created 2016, I believe, or after is not eligible for a backlot. And there was a lot split through single lot off from this in 2016.
I think to answer your question specifically, yes, you can use the backlot ordinance in the amended subdivision. If it meets the criteria of the backlot.
If the subdivision happened before 2016.
I'm just wondering if that's not also something we can talk about in the future, because we've seen two of these now, and I'm not sure, there might be better ways forward.
The Harrison one had more than 5 acres, so. So was that part of our thinking of like,
Didn't have frontage.
It didn't have.
I know it didn't have frontage, but it had a bunch of acreage.
Another criteria of the back lot, it has 0 frontage. And that lot had 67 feet, as I recall. So it wouldn't qualify for that reason.
That lot pre-existed. That was a weird one. They made that lot first. So it's just interesting. We might want to talk about it in the future.
And I think previously you had said basically that people working on the ordinance in the past, it seems like they didn't like back lots. And so the building a road in order to create a back lot is like almost a financial penalty you're paying for the privilege to build a back lot, basically. And so it is something, I mean, instead of just doing these one by one as they come along, I think, it would make sense if the board had a backlot discussion meeting and flesh this out, so we wouldn't just keep having these and then decide, and deciding, do we want to give waivers to X, Y, and Z type of things because we've given the past, actually like put it into things of what we actually want to see in circumstances like these, as opposed to making exceptions every time someone comes along.
I would agree with that wholly. If the board wishes, I think it wishes to move ahead and change the back lot or change the ordinances in a way that this would be allowed. There are some things, as Natasha had said earlier, that we run into all the time and we end up doing waivers for or consistently. If that's the case, then we should be changing the ordinance language to allow those things. Yeah.
And I'm happy to hear if there's an argument against allowing back lots of people want to make it and why we want to penalize that. But
I think if we come up with another backlot ordinance and we change it in a way that the public doesn't like it, we're going to hear about it.
yeah.
So why don't we move forward with the application? Again, thank you, gentlemen, for just bearing with us for a moment.
I did have one question about the 2 feet versus 4 feet.
Let's we're going to talk about the waivers in just a moment. I think the first thing to do is just move to see if the application is complete.
Yeah.
I did have I emailed Tim today. The application was a little hard for me to read. There were at one point wetlands was marked, or no, was not checked, but then neither wetlands or bodies of water, and then bodies of water was checked, but wetlands wasn't. And there were 2 separate applications and maybe a third document. And I didn't actually know what the complete application actually looked like.
So this is the application that I have. So it's the one that's got paid for. And I didn't see any concerns on that.
Yeah, so
It's been crossed off and
Oh, so no, that was my misinterpretation. So, that was for, does the property include water bodies? And it's not answered. And the wetlands is answered.
Right, I think on our form, the check, or the boxes are off filtered with questions.
Okay,
We need to fix that.
okay, we should sort that. Other than that little question mark, I felt like, everything was submitted. Brian, do you have a thought on that?
I had no issues with the completeness of it. So do we want to make a motion to find this complete, or does anyone else have questions on this?
So we can make a motion and then, we'll second and then.
We'll discuss the next one.
We'll to discuss, yeah. You want to go ahead and,
Yep, so I'll make a motion to find the amended minor subdivision plan application for the amended Woodman subdivision located in tax map 9 lot 50 complete in regard to the submission requirements.
I second that. Is there any discussion? So you can call for a vote.
Okay. All in favor?
I'm dumping the load, Brian. That's what this is called.
I get it. I just, like I said, I wasn't prepared for it, so I thought through the flow here. So I guess then we'll move on to the next one, which is the waiver for the geometric standards of the street going from 20 feet to 16 feet with a narrower shoulder. I think maybe before we even get into that, and one thing, just looking at this, I just want to raise, this is its own right of way. Right, so it's, the road is just going to be within this, it's not owned by the new lot. So I don't know if you had given any thought to maintenance of the road, who's responsible, if that will be included in the deed, or if you'll have a maintenance agreement.
So that's another question I asked of our attorney today. And his answer, even though it was hard for me to understand, is that it is part of this lot. So the right of way is part of is controlled by the lot it's created.
Okay. Did you follow up on that? So that gets to another question that we had discussed before, that the definition of right of way says it can't contribute to the dimensional standards, which includes that 300 feet of frontage that's required to create a lot. So if it's embedded within it, it's a right of way, it doesn't become a boundary line. It's not a lot line, and then you can't count it towards that 300 feet of frontage if it's embedded versus a free floating part of the overall subdivision.
If I may weigh in, Tim, just to clarify from what Attorney Ben McCall said. So the new lot will have access and frontage via the right of way. The right of way will be owned by the owner of the new lot, but it is a right of way. It is an easement, if you will. It is still separate, and it is permissible. We've had multiple exchanges with Attorney McCall today, and I just want to make sure we're on the same page, because I think maybe something just got a little confused. It is permissible to go about creating frontage through, so that this becomes a conforming lot. We have frontage, there is right of way, there is access. As noted on the plan, Victory Drive is 0.41 acres. That's separate acreage from the 4 lots that are, there's currently 3 lots, 4 lots, a new lot is proposed, the total is 4 lots. I think maybe the confusion is the ownership of the and kind of where the ownership lies and the maintenance lies with this right of way. Tim, do you want to weigh in? So it's fee simple, and it's also an easement, and it's sufficient right title and interest from, that is what we heard from the attorney. So
Legal perspective, it works. It crosses all the Ts and dots all the Is.
Well,
But is in violation
That's
of the
right.
ordinance,
Yeah,
even if
but-
it's legal?
right, that's kind of exactly where I was going. I mean, did you provide our specific right of way definition? I mean, because we've hit this a bunch of times. We have so many unique little aspects in here that don't conform with many other towns that, you know, on an initial, oh, a right of way is X might not be what we have. So our right of way definition specifically says that an area or strip of land described in a recorded deed and dedicated to the purpose of providing access, this is the key part, to a parcel of land other than the land on which the right of way crosses. So this is, it's part of this property to create access to this property, therefore it's not a right of way under the definition of our ordinance.
So back in history again, our ordinances were, every section had its own definition section in every section. So when the decision was made to make one definition section, a lot of definitions just got pulled from those other sections and put in definitions. If you read that and you think about the way that the backlot ordinance is written, that definition was written for the backlot ordinance. So I agree that I think that needs work, but I have to go back to Ben McCall's guidance to us that this is legal through the state's eyes and through our ordinance, it's legal.
And I'll read the note he said. In my head, you're describing a situation where a lot does not have sufficient frontage on an existing road. So the property owner proposes constructing a new road up to town standard in order to receive a building permit for a new house. In that situation, title to the road is not separate from title to the rest of the property. And maintenance of that road would remain the responsibility of the property owner as well. While this would be expensive, such an activity is permitted under section 610.
Still question if we looked at our definition. I mean, even Maine property law, so it's the right of a person to pass over the land of another person. The right of way.
This is true. I mean, it does literally say that.
But if I may weigh in, Natasha Kipper. So there were some follow-up questions between Tim and Attorney McCall. And that's why it was said is the question is whether the new lot will have both access and frontage. The private road can provide both. It can provide that access and it can provide that frontage. That the private road can provide both.
Is the lawyer talking about according to state laws or is he actually citing what our ordinances say?
Well,
He did not specifically, speak to your right of way question, Tim. And I missed that email. So your question was who actually owns the right of way? Does it belong to the butters on each side or it is simply a separate property? I think I understand Title 33, Chapter 7, Section 465, but would like it explained. Should there be a maintenance responsibility within the plan or in the deed of the lot? And I think if it's okay by you, Tim, I think in the future, if it's possible, when we're I appreciate you forwarding me these emails, but would it be possible to just copy me on these emails as the chair of the board, since we're talking about board items?
Yes, sure.
So his response, section 909B3 provides that the standards applicable to the minor dead-end streets may be waived if the planning board determines that public health, safety, blah, 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 standards are met, even if modified as to the width, the road would be sufficient to provide frontage if it otherwise qualified as a minor dead-end street. He doesn't talk specifically about your question regarding who actually owns the right-of-way, who's responsible for maintaining the right-of-way. I didn't see that unless I missed something else.
So
Can you guys explain why we need a right of way here?
Appendix A requires it.
Why didn't we need it in the other one? I'm just seeing so many inconsistencies and like, why are,
I agree, and that's, so, I agree 100%. And, the problem is, if the inconsistency, and this is my view, and this is why we're walking through this, is this needs to, regardless, I know Tim likes to talk about the history, and I appreciate the precedent and the history, but ultimately, it's our job to follow the ordinances. And I don't recall if the Harrison project had a right of way. They must have, because they can't build a road without a right of way, but we didn't speak to it.
One piece of property, yes, with not the same situation where this roadway and driveway becomes part of the boundary.
And that's a driveway. That's literally a driveway.
Right.
If there's no right of way, they can't build on it because it is literally a driveway.
But it has to be a right of way.
It has to be a right of way.
But the Harrison was implicit because it's just going straight in property.
Right, that's fine, but they can't build a road without a right of way. Is that correct, Tim?
If you look at the Harrison plan, there is a road right of way drawn onto the plan.
If I may weigh in, I would just caution us to be focused on the application that is in front of us this evening. I think it's important to notate that as we had earlier, that there's definitely room for some clarification in the ordinance, and that working with Isabel, the contractor, the professional that's been hired to work with ordinances, some of this could be resolved, but from a planning professional, my assertion is that planning board decisions are not precedent setting, that there is a unique application before you every time you review an application, that it is not the exact context. These aren't the same waivers that were discussed at the Harrison application. That application was approved, and I think we should focus on this. And also, I wonder if some of the confusion is, and maybe Mr. Carey can speak to this, maybe part of the misunderstanding is the alignment, but the alignment was, from my understanding of the application, is prescribed that way because of some of the wetlands on the property and trying to mitigate concerns of the wetlands. And so I think the reason some of this percolated more is based on these standards that exist on this lot, which are different than the last lot. And so the right of way was, in my view, clearly shown on the Harrison lot. It wasn't maybe specifically talked about. I wasn't here for all of those meetings. I know I was here for the last meeting, but I think I'm just wanting to, bring that up as a thought, that typically you're used to kind of seeing the center line of the right of way, of the road within the right of way. That might be typical, but some of the extenuating circumstances which make this plan unique, and it may be pertinent to have the applicant speak to some of that. I know they've provided those materials of the wetlands with this application, but if I might just provide that context a little bit. Thank you.
I can speak to that some too. The location of road is dictated by the site distance on the Layton Road. So there's a knoll in front of the existing house, which limits site distance in that direction. And there's also a knoll going the opposite way in the other direction. It does pass site distance, but only where the road is located.
Also, sidewalk, that they noted vegetation that could possibly be wetland areas, which we didn't pick up because it wasn't on any wetland maps. So we had wetland study done, and they suggested also to narrow it so that it would mitigate some of the.
We'll need you to come up to the mic. I'm sorry. The internet can't hear you from there.
Greg Carey again. So we had the site walk and they noticed some vegetation that was consistent with possible wetlands. Well, there were no wetlands maps that showed there being wetlands there. So we had a wetland study done. And in order to mitigate the impact on the wetlands, the planner suggested asking for the waiver on the width of the road, and
Evaluator.
the evaluator asked for to see if we could get a waiver on the width specifically so that it would have less impact on any wetlands that were out there. And that's the whole purpose of having the waiver for that. It's not to save money. It's because of the fact that there's wetlands out there and we want to disturb as little as possible.
I totally appreciate that. I'm just confused. Is this lot actually 4 acres? Or who owns the right? Like, I just want to make sure I'm
Well,
super clear.
Yeah, I mean, despite the attorney's response there, I mean, look at under Maine law, basically, if titles the burdened land and the benefited land, so if you have same ownership, an easement or a right of way is automatically extinguished or merged out of existence, right? You can't grant yourself a right from yourself to yourself. There's no purpose of that, so it's extinguished. You no longer have a right of way.
When we're reading Appendix B, Appendix A, the only mention of right of way is ROW, right? So in that reading, to Tim's point, were they just meaning where the road goes?
Well, I think if you back up, I mean, so the intent here, right? I mean, I think the reason that this driveway definition is there, it's any way. So it's basically
Yeah.
any road, because private road can be a driveway. So another way to read driveway is basically a private road that serves 2 lots or less. So that at some point there was intent to say, if it's serving 2 lots or less, it's a driveway. But the reason when you're doing a subdivision to have the right of way is because the intent is to most likely to serve more than 2 lots. So it's not ownership of any individual, it's combined, then you have an HOA agreement. So that's why you would require a right of way, because it's not any individuals. They all have the right to use that to access their property, which is why I think when you start with a subdivision, you can put one in, but when you've already kind of laid something out, and you're going back and amending it, and no one else is utilizing that road, they've got access off the public way, to try to put a right of way to a single lot,
So it
doesn't follow the logic and it
that's actually a
blows
good
up.
Point. It would be cleaner if the parent lot kept that land and did a right of way to the back lot. The problem with that is now you have no frontage, which is the whole point of the road. You would have to carry it 600 feet. I can't argue with the logic, and this, I mean, like I said before, Pownell's been doing this, and if it looks like a driveway and acts like a driveway, it's a driveway, and you can't get frontage off a driveway.
You can't give yourself a right of way on your own.
You-
property.
I've always built to town road specs.
So no, they don't have to be, they can be.
So if it's built to town road specs, it's no longer a driveway, it's a private road, not a right. It's an actual road.
Right, and that,
So it's not
You need to come up to the mic, sorry.
So if it's built to town specs, it's no longer a driveway, it becomes an actual road. Correct?
See, that would be, I think that's debatable.
Well, private road can be a driveway according to
Private road could
definitions,
be
which
a
kick you
driveway.
back to driveway, which
Yeah.
any way that serves 2 lots or less is a driveway that does not afford frontage.
The purpose of the road is to gain frontage. for
Correct.
the Property.
Correct.
And so how are you gaining that frontage?
If it was continued to be owned by the parent parcel,
You wouldn't be able to get frontage.
it would be a private road, which is a road. He owns the fee to the road. Like a lot of these state roads, you own to the center of the road. You own the fee under the road, but it's still a road. So the frontage is still allowed, even though the state doesn't own the fee to that road. So the frontage still counts.
So the confusing, the bit that I think that is concerning us is you've built a road on a right of way. The child lot, the divided lot is the owner of that right of way. And it is getting its frontage throughout the 300 feet of that right of way. So if the parent lot owned that and its boundaries, if the right of way was within the boundaries of the parent lot, the daughter lot wouldn't have any road frontage. You'd have to continue that 300 feet beyond that.
You're calling it a right of way. It's an easement across of the road.
Right, but
And an easement and a right of way are two different things.
We require a right of way.
May I jump in real quick? So, let's take a step back, perhaps. Let's look at Appendix A, Item 1. Minimum width of the row, of the right of way. For all categories here, we're in the, design and construction standards for streets. Collector streets, minor dead-end streets, 600 feet or less. The right-of-way requirement is 60 feet. The right-of-way has 60 feet. We're talking about deviation from Item 2, Item 7, and Appendix D. Item 2 is minimum width of pavement. So 20 feet is required for minor dead-end street, 600 feet or less. They're requesting 16 feet. And then under Item 7, width of shoulders across the board for collector streets, minor dead-end streets, 600 feet or less, it's 4 feet. For this application, they are requesting 2 foot width of shoulders. That's the adjustment. And then moving down to Appendix D of this Section 16 appendices, it is the geometric standards for a turnaround. So I'm just wondering if we're kind of moving, I understand there's a lot to discuss here. There's a lot of definitions, but there's 60 feet of right of way.
yeah, sure. Nobody's arguing that.
And so
Is it a real right of way? Right, is it a real right of way?
So I think when Natasha's urging us to do, and it's fine, we can do that. We can vote on the waiver as proposed, but this conversation is still gonna happen, whether the staff like it or not. So if we want to move forward with the first motion, I'm happy to do that. Or do you want to? So this has nothing to do with the right of way conversation. It's independent of that.
But assuming that a road could be used here.
Well, yeah,
requires a
that's,
right of way, so
we
it's
can
a little-
discuss that. So we can discuss that within the confines of the application as we go through the process, whether they meet the standards. And so we can talk about that as we go through the standards of the subdivision.
So when we approve it, it doesn't meet the stand, effectively doesn't meet the.
Yes, because we're not approving the road and we're not approving the application. All we're doing is saying, yes, it's fine. You can build a road to a standard that's less than what is in the town ordinance. That is not moving this project any further forward other than just giving them an opportunity to build a smaller road. Once we get down into the conclusions of law, then we can have discussions about the meaning of a right-of-way and who owns it and whether or not that actually provides frontage.
Is that one of those though? I don't remember seeing that.
Well, it's the conclusions of law is literally the ordinance itself. So under the ordinance, you're still gonna have the single lot ordinance, which requires you to have 300 feet of road frontage. And so the argument about the right of way is part of who can gain frontage, road frontage as defined under definitions.
So you want to do that, jump over the approval and go to the conclusions of law before?
Yeah, we're not just because we're approving a waiver doesn't mean that we are, or voting on a waiver doesn't mean that we are approving the application. So why don't we do that? Natasha, you rattled off a few different things. I don't know if the proper waiver is what I have in front of me or not.
Did Chief Peters say anything about that he was fine with the idea of 16 feet and 2 feet for shoulder, or did he comment on the shoulder piece at all, or?
He did. He commented and he's fine with it.
For sure approval.
Yes.
And we had, I know this is different than previous meeting, but in the previous meeting, we also had language there clarifying that with the narrower, by granting a narrower road, you couldn't be used by more than one person, more than one house. And should we have that clarification in this as well?
The language is written onto the plan.
Okay.
Which is why it points to the driveway definition.
So our motion should follow what's on the plan. Yes.
If I may weigh in, so my suggestion would to speak through the waivers that have been requested, which these two are listed in my motion. Appendix A, item 2, the minimum width of pavement, 20 feet is required, 16 feet is requested. And then Appendix A, item 7, roadway width of shoulders, 4 feet is required and 2 feet are requested. The addition that I gave is a waiver from the turnaround requirement as depicted in Appendix D, which
Did the applicant submit a waiver for that? I don't know that the planning board is writing waivers for applicants. So this waiver is, the road is only to service one lot. This reduction has been common practice for past roads in Pownell. So that would be the road standard waiver. Doesn't mention the turnaround.
But my guidance is if you're going to allow for a deviation from the ordinance as written, it would need to be in the form of a waiver, allowing for a waiver of that requirement. Otherwise, if you move to the third motion this evening of approving the project with conditions, you would need to speak to the turnaround. And if you're requiring it as depicted in Exhibit Appendix D or not.
Right.
I understand that they haven't supplied one, but staff noted this oversight and so wanted to call it out.
I'm not too sure. We didn't
Harrison project had a turnaround on the project.
yes.
They didn't request a waiver from that. They didn't need a waiver from that.
No, that's, I get that, and I appreciate the board's, input on this. I don't think it's our job to write waivers for applicants. I would say that the applicant would need, to submit the waiver. I'm open to different ideas. We've discussed hand-holding in the past.
I think if I may, Todd, I think I'm understanding what you're inferring. So perhaps a condition could be that if deviation from Appendix D is requested, then a waiver must be submitted as a condition of approval. I wasn't trying to insert that the board should be, granting the waiver without merit, but if this is to be approved as depicted, we just need to address that the private way as presented does not have a turnaround.
The note that's on there not cover the turnaround? And it wouldn't even need it with that note on there, because spoken to the fire chief.
No, you still need the waiver. And for us to vote on and while it's there for sure, it's technically not a waiver that was submitted. It's in anticipation that we would be approving a waiver that you would have submitted.
Well, when did the staff raise this to the applicant?
Well, a dead end road needs a turnaround.
Yeah.
Is that correct? And it wasn't on the plan. Then there should have been a waiver for it at some point. So what I can say about that is you're before the board right now and we're looking at the documents as submitted. It's not our responsibility to review the plans ahead of time. We're only reviewing the material that's before us at this moment. And I mean, I apologize, but I don't think that the board can be writing waivers for applicants. No, I get it. I get it.
I think that's the premise of the ordinance. It's in there required.
The preliminary stage, you could have at some point said there needs to be a turnaround.
Right. Anyone. Yep. Yeah.
I'll have to take credit for that. I did miss that. Natasha pointed that out.
Well, the applicant also missed that as well. So ultimately, it's the applicant's responsibility. It's not your responsibility.
Typically, he wants one in the future for wherever.
Right. Right.
That's why that note is important to be on there. That is where the fire chief wants that.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. And I appreciate you guys putting that in there. But I just don't see how we can make a motion on a waiver that we don't have. I think that's a problem. As much as Natasha's ready to kill.
I do think that
That's not what's happening. I'm sorry, but that is absolutely not what's happening. A waiver form is a new part of this application. A waiver can be requested in verbal at a meeting. That is not atypical. So if this is something that that's part of the process, and that's my job to guide the process, which is what I'm trying to do. So in my view, a verbal ask of a waiver is sufficient, and that would be my guidance.
Okay. So if you want to verbally request,
Greg Carey again. We are asking for a waiver for an existing turnaround at this time until such time as the fire chief asks for where it should be or depicts where it should be. But for now, we're asking for a waiver for the turnaround.
a waiver that,
I don't know the exact subsection, but Appendix C,
form.
D.
So the waiver request is, because we're gonna vote on exactly what you
Right.
say.
Yeah.
Because you are writing it in verbal form. So I know I need to have the waiver exactly as how, you can take a minute and we can go off the plan or whatever, but you need to tell me what waiver you want.
We're asking for a waiver for the turnaround portion of the road.
To do what?
To be put at a later date.
Say the whole, like, you need to, because we need to vote on exactly what you're asking for. And I don't mean to be a stickler, but this has to be,
I get it. I get it.
we voted on waivers before just as they were written, and they don't always make sense, but you need to tell me exactly what you want. We will vote on that.
I can see it better if I write it down.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It's hard. So, Natasha, while we're doing, while they're working on that, we can still, if I'm correct, is this all part of the same waiver that you're suggesting, or we can, what we're gonna do is we're gonna vote on the waiver. Can I have that? Do you have the other original number? Thank you. I thought I'd give that back to you.
I think we have it in the memo, right? Number 2, and then this would be new 3.
So again, I appreciate all the work that Natasha does, but the waiver request, I really think should come from the applicant. It shouldn't be rewritten in a way that, it shouldn't be rewritten by the board. I don't believe. Yes, no?
I mean,
At the beginning of my presentation, I did speak to an amendment to some revisions of my memo. This is very typical in a planning board process when a planner gives a presentation and makes amendments to their memo, because oftentimes the threshold of these small changes aren't worth submitting a revised memo. And so on the record, I had said my suggestion, and to answer your specific question, you could or could not revise item 2. Item 2 is not the writing of the waiver. It's the motion to either grant or deny these waivers. And then I also mentioned at the beginning of my presentation that to me, it makes sense that these are all deviations from the specifically the public and private road ordinance, section 16, appendix A, potentially appendix D, and so that they could be nested together within one waiver motion. It would be at the discretion of the board if you'd like to kind of unnest those and have them itemized.
That's what we're gonna do.
Yeah, I mean, I somewhat agree that we have a waiver request about the road, and so the turnaround is part of a road, so I don't think it's onerous to include what we've been discussing about the turnaround as part of an existing public and private road ordinance waiver. And, based upon discussions we may have in past and future meetings, we tweak
So
waivers.
you're free to make a motion if you'd like.
Yeah, I make a motion that we include the, language that has been discussed by Chief Peters and staff around the turnaround, to include that as part of this motion for public and private roads ordinance.
Um,
I think that's too big.
yeah,
I'm kind of in the middle. I think
that's a bit too vague.
I agree with kind of breaking these out. And I think Natasha adding the very specific references, I think is helpful for the record. So it's a little bit of a hybrid where I think the applicant should request it, but if we choose to add specificity,
Thank
I
God.
think that's, okay.
Let me try this.
So let's just hold off for 1 sec.
Okay.
I'm gonna make a motion. Oh, yes. Yeah, it was never seconded. So I'm gonna make a motion to waive the geometric standards. Well, I'll read their motion, their waiver. I make a motion that we waive the standards to have a I make a motion that we waive the standard of the 20-foot wide road with 4-foot shoulders and have a 16-foot wide road with 2-foot shoulders. And we can add on that private road ordinance, section 16, appendix A, items 2 and 7. Favor? So now we, you ready?
Yep.
Cool, thanks. I appreciate you doing that.
Okay. We are requesting a waiver for the standards requiring a turnaround on a dead-end private road.
Okay. Just,
That's the, they're going to move it.
yes, right. Well, we can make a motion. I can make a motion. I make a motion to waive the standards required for a turnaround on a dead-end private road. Is there any discussion? Second.
Can I ask,
Nobody seconded.
I don't think we're waiving that. I think we're just moving it.
Well, that's what, so we need to have. that.
Okay, so should I second?
You can second.
Okay, I'll second, and then I'll say, I don't think we're waiving that requirement. I think we're moving that requirement in both time and space. Is that, okay,
If I may weigh
Yeah.
in here on what I would recommend the board read what Appendix D says, because
okay.
my guidance as your town planner is that it's,
Yeah. The furthest point from the public road. Is that what you're reading?
I will, I will say with them, an asterisk, I believe the intention is that to be public or private road because it's a little unclear with that, with using public road. But I believe I'll wave to the CEO to have some guidance here. That would be my take because this is the design and construction standards for private and public roads. I think that is an error, but my point is that this is relative to this road, the row, based on how I read that appendix D title.
We definitely need to address it. So, I mean, if we did that waiver as motion, would we add a condition that reflects the note,
Yes.
right? I mean, yeah.
That's the thing. As read, it says we're waiving it. We're not gonna waive it. We're just gonna say it can
Maybe
have,
subject to
subject
two
to,
conditions
yeah,
on the plan.
exactly. And, yeah.
If I may, Tim, I guess I would want your insights as CEO. I would lean to you for interpretation here, but I think there is a distinction between the turnaround being placed on a driveway that, yes, that has been, the chief has weighed in on that, but from my understanding, and again, I'd love Tim's insights, of the verbiage here is it's talking about the public or private road, and we're talking about the driveway. So I see an incongruency to, it's,
So first, I think that the important thing here is that we're not asking, or you're not asking to waive the turnaround.
No.
You're asking to move it onto the driveway portion
Well,
of the lot.
as it states in the plan, but my second part to that was when, for your discussion that I had written down was the turnaround will be determined at a later date by the fire chief. That was the second part of, but that's not, that's not part of a waiver. I mean, it would be a condition once you allow the waiver, because notice I put on the private road is what I had put down as the request for the waiver was on a turnaround on the private road. I didn't request to waive it completely. I just requested to waive it. And then I had that written down at the end, but that's not part of the waiver. It's a condition.
That's an interesting point. It would be a condition. But how do you tie that condition directly to the waiver? Do you put that language into the waiver?
That's point one under motion 3. So the plan would have a reference to the waiver requests. So it would show a waiver to having a turnaround on the private road. And then it would add a condition that a turnaround has to be placed on the driveway in that lot as determined by the fire chief. Is how I would think about it.
So you're thinking that would just be a condition of approval and not necessarily a condition tied directly to the waiver.
The waiver only refers to 217. So clean that way.
We're on a different waiver. We're on.
Right, but I mean, our first waiver.
Yeah.
Just is 2 and 7.
Right, exactly.
Right, so we don't need another waiver to address the turnaround,
It-
is my point. 'Cause we
uh,
already addressed 2 and
That's
7.
totally-
No,
that's a different
no,
section.
that's Appendix D is the turnaround.
Yeah.
Right, it's down here. Yeah, I know that. Yes. Right, I know all that. I guess I'm not making myself clear, so I'll
Yeah.
stop.
Yeah, because that doesn't fall under the turnaround doesn't fall under the road width.
That.
Okay.
I understand. It's just, I'm just saying that whatever we're doing from here on out can be separate because we've already voted on.
Yes,
27.
yes, exactly, right. That's already been voted on. Road width has already been voted on, so we're good to go there.
Condition would be appropriate, in my view.
Got it, that's what you're saying.
It's late, I'm sorry.
So, we could approve the waiver and just make it a condition of final approval that the turnaround is on the driveway, as it says. Right, but that would be that would be later. We don't have to, I don't have to do that right now.
Right.
So I think the motion, I think we should just vote on the motion. All in-
Included private road, sorry.
So the
Waiver of
motion
turnaround.
as it stands to waive the requirement for a turnaround on a dead-end private road. So that's the motion as it stands, as submitted by the applicant. And we do have a second on it. Is there any further discussion?
For consistency, do we want to add per appendix D or?
Per Appendix D. So the waiver will be standards required for a I move that we waive the standards required for a turnaround on a dead-end private road per Appendix D.
Or Appendix D. That sound better if I say it, if I say it?
Yeah, you say it.
I think you get.
We are requesting a waiver for the standards requiring a turnaround on a dead-end private road as per Appendix D.
Very good. I move that we waive the standards required for a turnaround on a dead-end road per Appendix D.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Okay.
Wake up call.
Yeah. So I think we skipped the approval then.
So, right, the first thing that I would like to go through, and this is what we did for the last amended subdivision before us. We're gonna quickly work through section 901A, starting with number 1, and this is just for consistency, and I feel like we're just making sure that we're following the ordinances. The proposed subdivision will not result in undue water or air pollution. I added the will not. If somebody has another opinion, let me know. We're good. The proposed subdivision will have sufficient water available for reasonable foreseeable needs of the subdivision. This is a little bit of an unknown. The neighboring parcels, because we didn't get any sort of submission regarding the neighboring wells. So we are making a little bit of an assumption here. This is a subdivision. So if there's comment about that, I'd love to hear it.
My opinion would be if it's not part of the minor subdivision ordinance, this would be an NA. Is a amended subdivision part of a minor? Isn't it a minor? It is an amended minors.
Right, so it's,
So
oh,
you use the minor subdivision in your review process.
which is section 901A.
Review process and submissions for minor subdivisions, 908. And is there a requirement for a water study to be done within this section, is my point.
Yeah, so that's the question. And section 901 is under subdivision, which also it's an umbrella. It includes minor subdivision. So you can't not, even though it's not talking specifically about minor subdivisions, it's including all subdivisions.
Okay.
Is that correct? Yeah.
Tim, may I clarify? I think Tim was trying to make the point that the requirements for a minor subdivision, the threshold of requirements are much less
Yes.
than of a major subdivision. And so I think he was just trying to help the board to show that this could be considered an NA if it is not a requirement of the application.
Got it. Understood.
Yep.
So we will call it NA. Number 3 is NA as well. The proposed subdivision will not cause unreasonable soil erosion or reduction in capacity of the land to hold water. So that is dangerous, unhealthy, or an unhealthy condition may result. That is on the plan. So that is will not. Number 5, the proposed subdivision will not cause unreasonable highway or public road congestion, safe conditions with respect to use of highways or public roads. The proposed subdivision will not provide the adequate the proposed subdivision will provide for adequate solid sewage waste disposal. The proposed subdivision will not cause an unreasonable burden on the ability of municipality to dispose of solid waste and sewage. The proposed subdivision will not place an unreasonable burden on the ability of local governments to provide municipal and government services. The only flag on this was who is responsible for the road. And I know we bounced a little bit back and forth about the right of way and who owns the road and who can get frontage off the road. I think the concern of the board would be that the road is properly maintained and that the town doesn't have to deal with that. So I think this kind of goes back to who's ultimately responsible for the right of way.
This is 8.
This is number 8.
Is there anything on the plan?
I didn't see anything. There's nothing on the plan about maintenance, is there?
I'm sorry, I don't have Ben McCall's email in front of me, but I do think that his answer to some of my questions answers this is that the right-of-way road belongs to the lot.
I would concur with looking up. I think a right of way surrounds a road. And the thing is, because you have a right of way, it's got to be 60 feet long. You can't build anything in that right of way. We need 60 feet to have a road. And I think it belongs to the lot. And here's why. And I think they can get frontage on it because 1, we have precedent. And I think for tax purposes, we need to know who owns that. And it makes it clear. I think the ordinance has conflated different kinds of right of ways. So that's my reading, like, of both this and how they listed right of way. But I think, and I defer to Natasha and Tim on this, I think that has to be, that 0.41 acres is supposed to be in the lot. That's how I read it.
Who is taxed on that?
I think it's the lot, and that is, again, what we saw last, yes, there is a right of way on some things we've seen before, but they're owned by the lot. And we need to be able to tax these things. We need to be able to say who owns it.
A right of way, like, it's not a right of way though. Case law shows that if it's a right of way granted to yourself, it's merged, it's extinguished, it's not a right of way.
It's a road's right of way.
So can I
Yeah.
butt in? So in Powell, roads, right of ways are not taxed. They are not considered property. I think that what Ben McCall's statement is that the right and the right of way, right to use and the right to use that not only for access, but for frontage is allowed in the ordinance.
But who owns the right of way?
That's the intent. Like, you're not supposed to have an owner. It's supposed to be the HOA. That's why you would have to serve multiple people. And so if it serves a single person, it extinguishes the right of way.
But then
You
it can't be
grant
owned
it to
by the
yourself.
primary.
Right?
So,
because-
yeah, because then it can't be
So-
used for frontage.
Can I butt?
Right.
Yeah.
Can I butt in for
Yeah.
again? So again, Pownell does not tax private roads. They are not taxed on a property tax, even when they are part of an HOA.
That's what I'm saying. The logic for that is because it's not owned by any one individual. It's shared and it's their responsibility and it's carved out. Here, there's no carve out because it's from one lot to the same, so it's extinguished. So you don't have a right of way.
May I weigh in?
Yeah.
So in many communities, I work with private ways in Maine. Let's just bear in mind that everyone has different ordinances. We've already established that we have some things that would streamline the ordinances. Some of that could be to have some more details. So that would help when we have these sorts of conversation. And so I've seen in other communities, I'm just weighing in to share my thoughts on how I've seen it done. There can be private way maintenance agreements, and that is a single owner agreement. So that's something that may be required in some other communities that I work in here in the state. Similar in size, I would say, to Pownell. I guess I just have to say that I appreciate the conversation we're having, but I don't. If we want to look at the recent example of the past plan from last month, there is an isolated right-of-way. It was approved. This is what is proposed here. This is why the professional has noted Victory Drive is 0.41 acres. I think as Mr. Carey is a PLS, maybe it would behoove us to have some feedback from him on the processes here, because he's also adhering to state standard. Again, I genuinely appreciate the conversation we're having, but I think we're getting wrapped around the wrong things.
Natasha, with all due respect, it's just that our ordinance conflicts with that. So I think we are trying to make sure that we on the record are, I totally agree with you. But the problem is we have a definition that is in total opposition. So we just need to reason through this and make sure that we're on the record and doing this the right way. So I totally appreciate you. I think we're going to land where you are. We are going to land there. We just need to make sure we're covering our bases, because I don't want to get called out on this. And God knows how many other lots like this we got out there. So I think that's the only thing I'm trying to do, is make sure we truly understand if the kids sell the lot, who's responsible for the road? And I actually believe it goes with the lot. So I think Brian is not agreeing. So I want to make sure we're coming at the same, I just want to make sure we're arriving at the same place.
I would say I don't agree. I think our ordinance and Maine law defines an easement or right of way as being an agreement between two different owners.
Yeah.
So I think the only way you can get there is in this format is lot 50 retains that easement. It came from that lot. I mean, I don't know if there's any restriction on having a free floating piece of your property out there. I don't think there would be, but it's basically, it's kind of a retained piece of 50 that's giving a right of way to new lot 2B. That's the only way I can see that this conforms with our ordinance and the law.
And can, so looking at the plan, the daughter lot has a stretch of property that goes alongside the road. And so it can take frontage off that if the parent lot held on to the right of way. That would make it far cleaner as the ordinance goes. It would answer your questions. It would answer my concerns. You worded things differently. So
And
That's how
they
it
could
typically
have it,
happens.
they
Like
could
you-
have it, yeah, be owned by that, but you could have an agreement saying the road is maintained by X, Y, and Z, and it doesn't have anything to do
and
with
then
us.
that would
though.
have to be,
Yeah,
that would have to be conditioned.
May I weigh in, just offer a solution? So, again, I respect that you want to have this dialogue. I guess a question, if I may, would be, if there's no urgency here, they're not planning on building something right away, and, you know, CEO and town planner feel they're on the same page with what so far the town attorney has said. Maybe, an idea would be for the whole packet to be given to the town attorney and get feedback. I don't know. I haven't asked this of the CEO. I'm just wondering if we're grappling and we're so divergent on some of the key issues here, and you know, the guidance, this isn't a personal matter. It's fine if you disagree with me, but you know, this is a stamp plan by a PLS, so I take that with good authority. And also it has been reviewed by various staff members. So I think if there's a conflict and we don't have a time constraint, I'm just speculating, but of course, please weigh in, applicant. But
So
What do you're saying? What do you want from me to get to where you need to be to agree? Like, do you want me to free float that, the right of way and keep it within my property? And just, I mean, whatever it takes, but I mean, you guys don't have to waste time. If you want to tell me what you want to do, I'll do it.
Well, I think, I mean, based on definitions, that would make more sense, right?
Yeah.
A right of way is from one party to another. So if this
Can I
law.
weigh in before we go any further with this? If that strip of land beside the right of way is taken away from the new lot being created, that lot now has no road frontage.
No, it does. It does, because it's bordering, it's right here. This is the roadway, and that's how it gets its.
This is a 60-foot right of way for the road. You need 40 feet beyond that for the ordinance.
And so this is 63 feet right here.
Right, so you need 40 feet beyond the right of way for the frontage for this lot by ordinance.
Right,
That's what the flagpole is.
right.
Right, so this
With what?
happens to be more than 40 feet on this plan.
Right.
But even if you move that to within 40 feet, you still have got the right of way through the property of the created lot.
I would disagree with that because step one is you have to have a right of way to create frontage. So step one in the order of operations is lot 2B doesn't exist. Lot 50 creates that little right of way over there. There is no lot 2B. Now you've got a right of way that has a road in it. And now you can create lot 2B against that right of way to get your frontage.
I'm sorry, I'm not following that.
So, right, I mean, we're talking about this the other day. That's its own right of way. Like it's owned by someone else. It's not owned by the lot, right? By definition, a right of way has to go from A to B. So lot 50, before lot 2B is created, creates a deeded right of way for Victory Drive, that little 60 by 300 foot block. Then you create lot 2B off that, taking that frontage. It's like a multi-step process to get there, right? This isn't all happening
We're
together,
making this way too complicated.
I think,
but that's,
I have to say this. I have to say that I am hired to interpret the ordinance and with state law, and that's what I have done. We have paid North Star to have a professional planner guide us through this. And that's what we have done. I've been asked to ask questions of our town attorney about the legality of this, and that's what has been done. And all professionals have agreed.
I disagree. I don't think
Okay.
the town attorney actually said anything specific of the right of way. I am okay, to be perfectly honest, moving forward with the plan as proposed. But I do agree with Brian that despite what the professionals are telling us, it literally makes zero sense, and I want that on the record. Just as Brian said, you are creating a non-buildable lot and you are curing that by putting a right-of-way through its own lot to put a road in. It just doesn't make sense. That's the way it's been done. So I suggest at this point that we move on from this specific topic, but it is not a dead topic by a shot, and I'm putting that also on the record so that anybody who comes before us again with something similar to this, we are going to be refining how we approach these. And it's not just, this literally makes no sense to me, and I've said this before. So until we can make it make sense, if we approve this, this is only because of precedent and not because I feel like it actually follows the ordinance, and that may be the wrong thing to say. But we will continue on. I do think, it, I think, putting something about who's supposed to maintain the road on the plan, that would be easy. Yeah. 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 You could. You can't put a condition on the plan to that lot 50.03 is responsible for the road maintenance.
Condition of approval.
Condition of approval, yeah.
Want me to use the tax map number of lot 2B, right? Lot 2B will be required to maintain Big Tree Drive. Which do you want me, because tax maps change.
Yeah.
So I see it all the time.
Okay.
Tax maps.
So 2B. So number 9, moving on real quick, the proposed subdivision will not have an undue adverse effect on the scenic or natural beauty of the area. Number 10 is not applicable. This is another little point. Number 11, the subdivider will this, as written, it says the subdivider will adequate financial and technical capacity to meet the above standards. I think what it should actually say is the subdivider will have the adequate, financial, technical capacity to meet the standard. So this is where we have required a some sort of financial commitment. I think in this case, where a performance bond or a performance guarantee, I think in this case, where the road isn't being started, I think that would just be applicable for when the road is built at whatever time in the future. But I would argue that we should have something in place in case the applicant failed to build the road to the standards that the town requires. Yeah, right. Right. Yeah. Yes, yeah, exactly. But it wouldn't, we wouldn't need that now. It's when. Right, yeah, yeah, right. So that would, it would be this, excuse me, the same commitments. And guarantee that was issued for Stetson. I think we could use the same language.
Is that note something there where it says, no building permit until that will cover?
Right, yeah, exactly.
Or even a condition of approval could be demonstration of sufficient financial capacity.
Condition of approval of,
That would allow us to comply with joint financial. So at the point when they were ready to build the road, then we would be asking for the waiver and the
Right.
bond.
right,
But if it's 10 years from now, we might have a different kind of standard.
You bring the quote, you'd say I can pay for it, show you proof. That would do.
no, it would be,
Percent of the road.
right,
costs.
we'd have an inspector come out and make sure that the road is built to the standard.
No, saying, like, I get a quote of 60K or whatever, then you would okay that, then I would give you the fee for that, or you need 60K up front, or how would, so I'm not quite clear on how that, what the stipulations are for that.
Well, I think what I would say at this point, that I would say that you do have adequate financial and technical capacity to meet the standards for approval. I would say for the sake of approval tonight, because you're not actually doing anything at this moment, you meet the standard because you're literally doing zero. But when you start, and this is my view and anybody else jump in, once you start, you then need to meet that. And that would be on the plan that you would have to have the, as,
Riverfront bank.
right. It would be, hold on, give me one sec.
So I think to make it clear, I think that the applicant maybe thinks you're talking about something different than what you really are. So what Todd is talking about is, and I can't pronounce it, irrevocable letter of credit is, and I could be a little off on this, but it is an agreement with the financial institution that money is available to you and the town. That
I just want to know what you want specifically.
So specifically,
right, if you backed out, the town can use it. Okay.
yeah. So, and we'll read this again. It's prior to issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall provide the following: a performance guaranteed based upon construction cost estimate to be provided by the applicant. So you'd give us an estimate of the road construction. Inspection fee equal to 2% of the cost of the required improvements. The form of these funds shall be provided through an irrevocable letter of credit, bond, or cash. So that was a totally different problem than you're dealing with. That was just for maintenance of Poland Range Road. Yeah.
So I need to butt in here and make another little change there. The 2% for inspections needs to be held by the town in escrow. Okay, not in a letter of credit, but actually cash in escrow.
Okay,
In escrow would be the right.
yes. So I will, so the subdivider will provide adequate financial and technical, or has adequate financial technical capacity to meet the above state standards. 12 is not applicable, 13 is not applicable. Number 14, all freshwater wetlands within the proposed subdivision have been identified. 15 is not applicable, 16 is not applicable. The proposed subdivision will provide for adequate storm water management as per the plan, and the rest are not applicable. Does anybody have any other comments regarding this project? Objections, concerns?
Can I just say that when they do construct the road, it seems to me they will need a DEP permit, so we'll want to see that as a condition of approval.
They will not need a DEP permit because they're not filling in enough wetland.
We don't know that.
We do, because it's calculated on, it's right here on the note.
Does make.
Right. In Maine, you're allowed to fill 4,100 square feet. The turnaround won't be, that's one of the reasons to move the turnarounds. It won't be in the wetland.
I'm going to make a motion. I move that the board approve the amended minor subdivision plan application for the amended Woodman subdivision located at tax map 9, lot 50, based on the application materials, plan sets, applicant testimony, and the findings of facts and conclusions of law, and the planner memo dated August 19, 2026, with the following conditions of approval. Number 1, the revised final plan to add a note referencing the waiver request approval. Number 2, prior to issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall provide the following to be reviewed by the town attorney and receive select board approval for a performance guarantee based upon the construction cost estimate to be provided by the applicant. B, the inspection fee equal to 2% of the cost of the required improvements, or pay an inspection fee equal to the estimated cost of inspection by the town engineer or consulting engineer. C, the form of these funds shall be provided through an irrevocable letter of credit, a bond, or in cash. Number 3, Lot 2B is responsible for maintenance of the new road. Did I miss one?
Yeah, the turnaround. 4.
4, a turnaround for emergency vehicles that meets the standards for the Pownell Fire Department will be incorporated as part of the parcel, as part and parcel of the extension of the driveway off from Victory Drive.
If I may weigh in, it would also be important to add to the overall motion as amended at the planning board meeting, August 19th, 2026. If I may weigh in, my opinion would be that is a de minimis change to the plan and it need not be a condition of approval.
So we have, so do I need to go back and do that again?
I think you can just say on the record, if you like, as amended at the,
Okay.
as amended at the planning board meeting and today's date.
Okay. As amended at the August 19, 2026 Pownell Planning Board meeting. All in favor? Motion passes. Okay. Go. Thanks for putting up with our learning. I appreciate that. But this is important. We're learning on the job. And it's important for us to really understand, to provide better service to the town. So I appreciate your patience.
That I'm not
Yep.
more important than the others.
So, yeah. Okay, thank you again. All right, let's try and get through this last little bit.
Yes, I think that's the same thing that we, with the last plan, if you, once you get them made, they're satisfactory to Natasha and I. I think they'll be available to be signed. Yes.
New business? None. CEO update.
So just a couple of things. Isabel, we talked about having her come in the September meeting to present the changes we're going to have to make to our ordinance due to the new LDs passed. And it looks like we don't have a whole lot, won't have a whole lot on the agenda for September. So I would recommend that we continue with that schedule. If somebody would rather spend more time on that in a workshop, then you need to agree and schedule that. The other thing I have is in September, for September meeting, we've received an application for amendment to a subdivision to, believe it or not, narrower road.
Serving one house.
That has already been approved
It's
in a minor subdivision. So those are the only two things that you will have on the agenda for next week so far.
And I'm sorry, you said Merrill Road. You said Merrill Road?
no.
Narrow.
Narrow, sorry.
Saying that.
Yeah. Exactly. I think we could probably handle spending some time at that meeting to discuss ordinances. And then what I would say is, because I do think obviously the ordinances are important. If we continue to, if the schedule stays light, then we can really knock some things out. But if we find that it picks up again, then, and we're not getting enough done, because we have to start thinking about timelines. And so we should think about when we really need to get things kind of buttoned up. I know February is a little ways away, but it goes quickly.
Once you get into the holidays, nobody wants to do anything. So
Yeah.
I think it's important to keep on chugging along as much as you can.
Agreed. So why don't we see how it goes for September? And if we decide that there's a lot there and we want to try and meet in a workshop in October, I think that would be reasonable.
Okay, so I will tell Isabel that we're still on for.
Yeah. Does that sound okay to everybody?
Can I ask why we wouldn't want the lawyer to look at this whole right-of-way right-of-way whose land it's on, just to edify ourselves, even though we've just made a decision about this project?
And I think that's fair. And I think, Brian, I'll leave it up to you, to propose a question, to the lawyer with your, documentation of why you feel that this is not a reasonable way to develop a right of way. If you want to do that, or if you could do that for us, because I think that would, instead of a bunch of non-lawyers trying to hammer out these details, I think that would be.
I can put something together, but I think, just amending these, I think the clearest thing, it's gonna go back to that driveway definition and just in the minor subdivision, just make it clear that a private road is allowed in a subdivision if it serves X number of lots or more.
So that would be an ordinance change.
Right.
But as it stands right now,
If we haven't
we
known
should
before we
probably,
change it.
that's gonna be a year before any ordinance change goes through, but in the short term, we are probably gonna be looking at more of these, I would assume. So trying to get our immediate question clarified, I think would be a good idea. And then we can talk about how we might want to actually change the ordinance.
Is there gonna be
Yeah.
a special mid-year meeting? Like, do we know that? Like, I know in past years, they've had like a special town meeting in January.
I don't.
So we could potentially get one.
Yeah.
Nothing on the books yet.
There is one.
And the question is not necessarily like
Yeah.
legal perspective, but like what you raised, it seems like the ordinance.
I would just say, like, if we're gonna tackle this,
It's in violation of.
I think we have to tackle the problem, not the individual ordinances. We are gonna have these huge parcels of land
Yeah.
that only have 75 feet in. And we can't make everybody build a road.
Yeah.
Like, this is not okay.
I agree.
And so I think we have to solve the problem and not just chip away at the ordinances. That's not the way to solve this problem. And I would really like to look at, can we actually solve the problem? And then we don't have to deal with right of ways or anything like that.
So not to, this was obviously for yes, agreed. We should just save it. But I agree 100%. That's part of the overall ordinance change.
Exactly.
We can talk about that.
And we have to think about it.
Yes, agreed,
Although we do have to get through it.
agreed.
And I think we could get some public input up before the public.
Well, can we,
Yeah. Next month's agenda?
So just communications, Kathy Hoke would like a newsletter, August
Okay.
24th. And we're also August 27th is the Zoom call, GPCOG, about understanding the new housing regulation. I sent that around.
Okay.
So, or you could go in person.
Yeah.
If you need to see it again, let me know and I'll send it again.
do we want to like put on the agenda or do homework for people like for this road discussion? Are we going to wait till October to discuss this? Or are we going to discuss it next meeting? And then
No, I think we're gonna try and maybe we'll try and talk about it in September.
And I think Brian's gonna get us some questions,
Yep.
to ask the attorney and we'll go from there. And, if this continues, I think that it's worth it to, have the workshop with the attorney on this subject, so we don't email back and forth
Yeah,
and back and
right,
forth and back
right,
and forth. So
right.
We just get it over with.
Yeah.
So, and if that's something that we feel that we should do sooner than later, then maybe I can arrange that.
Yeah.
So,
I think, if we start with, because it may be an easy question for him to answer. And so I think we start with the question, and if we still have questions, then maybe do a workshop and we can talk about ordinances as well as what we can do and those sorts of things.
Okay.
That way we're not spending money on a lawyer if we don't need to.
But I do think to all Ryan's point, some is that we don't have to only discuss ordinances in this meeting.
Yes, for sure.
I think if somebody wants to take the initiative and start working on drafting an ordinance to resolve this, then
Yeah.
have at it.
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm interested to say, you know, to North Star, to you, to us in general, like, let's look at the back lot and this subdivision road thing. And is there a way to make this make sense? Driveway versus private road versus you're getting footage and all this.
Job, right?
So
Yeah.
Again, it's as easy as just defining how many can come off a private road. I think it just comes down to that.
So I will take a look at the back lot and make some suggestions, and then and you can as well, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. That's it.
So the other thing I have is we have plans over there for signatures. Everybody needs to.
Todd goes first.
Okay. And Todd, you need to, do we have the letter of decisions made up?
I think it-
Okay, I think
Did you answer me and I didn't see it?
I didn't see.
I had a draft and I
uh-huh,
had one more change.
Yep.
So I guess.
I'm sorry, I was in and out of the office all day today, so I didn't see every,
Well, if you can get those, I will do my best to get down here.
I really don't know the answer to that.
That's not what I have. You see, you gave me changes.
Okay, I move to adjourn. All in favor?